Good afternoon. Happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and welcome to today's webinar, Women Leading the Charge, Cybersecurity in the Public Sector. Cybersecurity is one of the most pressing issues of the 21st century and requires collaboration between the government, industry, and institutions to address the ever-evolving and emerging challenges. My name is Victoria Hodge, and I am a product manager and moderator here at Leadership Connect. I'm joined by a group of esteemed panelists: Sherilyn Pascoe, Director for the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at the National Institute of Standards and Technology; Jennifer Franks, Director of Information Technology and Cybersecurity for the Government Accountability Office; Hope Goins, Minority Staff Director for the House Homeland Security Committee; and Jordan Creamer, Community Manager for Teamwork Security. Today, we hope to offer knowledge, inspiration, and guidance. Whether you're a newcomer or a seasoned pro, I am sure that you're going to walk away from today's panel with some new insight. We encourage our audience to participate via the Q&A feature, as we will save some time for audience questions at the end. We will also have some opportunities for audience participation via poll questions. So I'd like to start with our first poll question for our audience. How are you participating in Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year? As our audience is answering that question, I'd like to turn to our panelists and ask you all to tell us a little bit more about your career journey and what inspired you to pursue cybersecurity. Let's start with Sherilyn.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about women in cybersecurity. A little bit about my background. I started my career working in public policy on the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, where I worked on kind of technology policy as well as cybersecurity policy. That's where I got to know the folks at NIST, and they asked me to join them to continue my role in kind of cybersecurity policy. I eventually became, the director of the NIST National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And the NCCOE, we are a collaborative hub, really working with lots of organizations around the world, across industry, government agencies, to conduct research challenges, to solve cybersecurity challenges, facing the nation. And we do so by demonstrating kind of the use and integration of cybersecurity standards and technology. So, throughout my career, I've always been very focused on kind of innovation and understanding how innovation can be beneficial for society, how we can realize really the full potential of technology for good. And so I'm really grateful to be able to leverage those strengths, now in my role to really make some difference in the cybersecurity field. So thanks so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Jennifer, what about you?
Well, first, thank you for having me, and happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I always enjoy this month, and to be starting the month with a bunch of beautiful ladies in the field of cyber is always thrilling. I started my journey when I was an undergrad at Hampton University, and I was coding and developing my senior capstone. And I won't tell you what kind of project it was because it'll date me. But my responsibilities of that project was the security assurance of that. And I got a little interested more into what it was and how it was really shaping like the newness of the technologies that were evolving. And I enrolled at Carnegie Mellon University under the CyberCore Scholarship for the Service scholarship that was offered by the National Science Foundation. And it was only around a couple of years at the time. So I didn't know a little bit, I only knew rather a little bit about it. And I only had to serve 2 years of federal service for, getting that cybersecurity education. And after my first 2 years of coming into GAO as an intern and then a full-time hire, I was still having fun. Cyber was engaging. I was learning a lot, with GAO and our perspective of working with Congress, really getting to work with staffers in the Senate and the House and working with various agencies across the government. I was still having fun. So 18 years later, I'm still here and I'm still having fun, and cyber's evolving, and it's never a dull day with the research and the involvement that we could really do in this career. It's always a different roadmap that you can take, and I have definitely just been in the core of this area for my entire career and been with the federal government. So that's my story.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hope, can you tell us more about your career journey and what inspired you here?
Hi. Yes, been working on the House Homeland Security Committee, like Jennifer, for a very, very long time. I've been with the federal government, and actually, the thing is that I've been with the Homeland Security Committee for about 17 years now, and so I've been able to see the evolution of cybersecurity policy, lawmaking surrounding cybersecurity, actually changing, getting operational components at DHS, the growth of that throughout the years, seeing how Congress has changed its posture, not only when it comes to legislating about cybersecurity, but also making sure that the cyber health in their communities, their constituents, has grown so much over time as well. Also looking at actually how the internal operations, how the House itself looks at its cybersecurity posture, and then even on the political side, how political campaigns look at their cybersecurity posture, and then of course state and locals looking at their election security posture. I would say that over time, just the growth, the magnitude of opportunity, the magnitude of responsibility that has occurred over the years, looking back to when I first started in 2000 and early 2008, things have changed so much, but I would say for the better. And as we have come along in this evolution of policy, we get to see how we've actually made things work for constituents, not just in metropolitan areas, but in rural areas as well. And it's taken a lot of work, not only with policymakers, lawmakers on the Hill, lawmakers in the House and the Senate, but also collaborative work with government agencies, collaborative work with external agencies that have been able to give us guidance and feedback, such as GAO, but also looking at standards that have been set out by NIST, keeping oversight over DHS, CISA, looking at how things work and seeing what can be improved and what can be done better for the American people.
Thank you, Hope. And Jordan, can you tell us more about your career journey and how you got involved with cyber?
Absolutely. I'm kind of an opposite of every one of these other ladies on the panel. I'm sorry about that, guys, because at first, back in 2016, when cybersecurity was introduced to me personally as a opportunity or a career field, I was negative towards it. I thought it was going to be very fly by night. That's just a network operator or something of those lines. And at the time, I was working as an SSO, SSA, so I was managing thousands of security clearances for the state of South Carolina at the time, and so I wasn't doing anything close to that whatsoever. And I looked my another strong female in cybersecurity actually now in the eyeball and said, "Show me, stop telling me about it." When I showed up to work the next Monday, I had tickets and travel arrangements on my desk ready to go participate in my first ever cybersecurity exercise called Cyber Shield. And at the time, that cyber exercise was held out in Indianapolis area. And it was probably the best experience as an Intel analyst, brand new to cybersecurity, I'd ever had in my life. And I've been drinking the cybersecurity Kool-Aid since then. So I jumped on and I started taking as many cybersecurity courses as I could. I went ahead and got SANS 401 Sec Plus certified. I got CE8 certified. And then I started trying to find the best way possible to engage the rest of my intelligence core in how to be involved in cybersecurity so that cybersecurity and intelligence functions work better together. And that's why I'm here today. So thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to learning some more as we go. So thanks, guys.
Thank you all. And I just want to express gratitude for you all joining us and sharing all the variety of expertise you all have to offer here. As you all can see, we have the poll results from that first question about how are we participating in Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year. And it looks like a lot of us are doing it just by showing up to this webinar today. So I'm glad to see you all here in the audience. Our second question is really focused on the importance of representation in cybersecurity. As you know, the title of this webinar is Women in Cyber, and representation is very, very important. Right now, women make up under 25% of cybersecurity professionals. So I'd love for you all to share with us, why is representation and diversity important in the cybersecurity space? Sherilyn, we can begin with you.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there were more opportunities to talk about this because it is such an important topic. And so thank you for, creating this for us to be able to kind of discuss this issue. So, for me, sometimes it feels like there's less than 25% women in the field. Often, I am the only woman in a room at a table amongst my colleagues, and you really have to, feel like you belong there and feel like you belong at those tables. The cybersecurity challenges that we are facing today are just so significant, so complex, and they're constantly evolving. So we're always looking for people from different backgrounds, different levels of expertise, so that we can really look at how to approach some of these challenges differently. And so for us, like as a research institution, this is really important for us, to be able to build teams with, folks that have expertise in technology, different areas of cybersecurity, different backgrounds, and be able to just really approach, approach thinking in different ways so that we're actually able to make progress. And for the women in cybersecurity, my colleagues that work with me, they are all kicking butt. They're all doing amazing work. And, we all should be looking for opportunities to showcase that work, make it much more clear to others watching, that this is a really wonderful career, that is something that really anybody can get into.
Most definitely. I think that piece about having different perspectives to approach a problem is so important. Jennifer, why is representation and diversity in this space so important?
I echo everything Sherilyn said. So I'll just give you an example. I went to an executive dinner here in Atlanta. I go between Washington, D.C. and Atlanta for work, but I was in Atlanta this week, and I walked into the room, and for the first time, probably in my entire career, being invited to one of these executive sessions to talk cyber strategies and looking at public-private partnerships, walked into the room, it was 50-50 male and female. And all of the women had the same reaction when you walked into another one. It was like, oh my gosh, because that never happens. And to be honest, when I first started at the agency many moons ago, we were very few and far between. Even when I was in school getting my undergraduate degree and into my graduate degree, we could count each other on one hand, and we were a solid connection, strong, unified connection together. And most of us still are very connected now. And like Sherilyn said, I have some bad ladies on my team, and they are firecrackers. And we are, making sure our voices are heard and that we are doing the work, but our resumes definitely speak for themselves. But we're still challenged in everything that we're doing. We have to do it differently and bigger, bolder, and better in some regards. And it's just helpful to have that diversity, have those different lenses and that representation in every phase of your career, at every phase of the life cycle of what it is you're doing, to get different perspectives on the table, get the perspectives heard, because everybody is offering something very unique and very different for the perspectives of what it is you're doing. And why not in cyber? It's a very engaging, very active field, and the sky really is the limit. But for the longest time, we were outnumbered by the men, or still are.
Thank you. And I love what you said, the sky is the limit there. And I'm sure that dinner was very empowering, being surrounded by such strong women. Hope, what's your perspective on why diversity representation is so important in cybersecurity?
It's so important. I would say, I would echo what Jennifer has said and what Sherilyn said, but also looking at it from the lens of looking at their background, where people are not only situated now, but the areas from which they have come, the areas from which they have interacted. in this space. I'll give you a very good example. Our committee a few years back passed a bill that gave $1 billion to state and local jurisdictions to enhance their cybersecurity posture. Now, that bill was led by and championed by Yvette Clarke of New York City. And while she is from a major metropolitan area, she understood and understood also from the perspective of our committee chairman at the time, Benny Thompson, who was from a rural area in Mississippi, but also by listening to other members of Congress who have had constituent matters in ransomware attacks in their jurisdiction, as well as my amazing staff. I'm from a rural area, but we also have staff that are from smaller areas in the country. The importance of this, the devastation that it could be caused if a city or a state doesn't have its cyber posture in order, or if there's a ransomware attack in that jurisdiction, or just making sure that there's certain technical assistance available. Saying that to say, looking at it from the lenses of other people, looking at it from the lenses of marginalized communities, looking at cybersecurity from the lenses of people that may not have as much access and education. That is why it's so important to have diversity at the policymaking level. Also, it's also important to make sure that when we do train practitioners, when we train other policymakers, when we groom people to get into this field, and it's such a broad field, when we groom people to get into this field, to actually let them know there are multiple ways to enter. To make sure that there are no barriers to entry, to make sure that students at HBCUs receive opportunities, students that live in rural areas of the country, make sure that they receive the opportunity to be in this field if they choose, and also let them know the various pathways that they can be in this field, because cybersecurity doesn't have boundaries. There are impacts that go far and wide when this field is involved, and there is really no one that this field does not touch.
That's a really key piece there. A lot of it has to be unified, whether you're from a rural area or metropolitan area, whatever your background is, there needs to be a lot of unity in this space. Jordan, what's your perspective of why diversity representation is important in cybersecurity?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna obviously echo a couple of things that have already been said, but I want to say 25%, like that's really good compared to what we came from. So I'll take that small win as we get it. But a part of that representation piece, I think, also comes from us as the fellow women who have been in this space, making sure we also continue to be good stewards of our profession and making sure we are doing the things to educate other women if we want to grow those numbers. So a lot of that is important if we make it important. The only other thing I'll really echo that I know we all know it, and but nobody's really said it out loud yet. But women think differently just inherently as being a woman. We have a lot of different things that are always on our minds. We handle and juggle a lot more through thought processes. I've seen that some of the best cybersecurity program managers, cybersecurity folks, they are women and they are doing amazing field. And we all see it, we all know it because we have those awesome team members that are women that are doing those things. But we inherently think different, and I think that's one of the things we need to hone in on as a skill to make sure we're bringing that to the table. And I think that that's one of the things that's going to help grow that, along with continuing to be those stewards of that profession. And we just have to make it continuously important to us so that other people see how important it is. And yeah, echoing everything else that the other ladies have said.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. We're gonna pop in our next poll question about what do you consider the most pressing cybersecurity challenge facing organizations today? So we'll let our audience chime in on that. But in the meantime, Hope, I want to ask you about the work you're doing in Congress. How has cybersecurity policy changed over time? I know you kind of hinted at this before, but I'd love for you to dive into it a little bit more.
Yes, Victoria, things have changed over time just because we have realizations. Realizations have changed. The landscape has changed in the past. I would even say 5 to 10 years, but of course, my career dates back a little bit longer than that. And also, where we have, I would say a few Congresses ago, we had a few members that were the go-to members on cybersecurity. Now we realize that cybersecurity, we also have to look in-house and saying that internally because we, as the House of Representatives, we are an organization to make sure that our cybersecurity posture is there. So now we have required cybersecurity training. For each and every staffer and for members. And then we also have to look on the legislative and policy making side. Well, we're an oversight body, so we have to grow with the federal government. So as the government cybersecurity posture has changed, the oversight work that we have to do for the federal government, that it's our charge in the Constitution, the oversight work of the executive branch um, that has changed and evolved as well. Looking at what goes on at DoD, what goes on at DHS, what goes on at each and every agency, the president's executive orders on cyber. That still involves Congress making sure that those things are carried out. Then, of course, on the legislative side, as I mentioned before, members represent their districts. They represent constituents in state and local areas. So saying that to say, having to see what has happened in states, what has happened in the municipalities, why they need grant funding, ransomware attacks, the debilitation that comes from that, why they would need appropriations, why they would need funding, grant funding from Congress because of that. And then, of course, what has happened within over the past little over 8 years is our election apparatus. The need for having secure elections, the threat that comes from not from actors overseas that could threaten our elections, and making sure that the secretaries of state have what they need in their respective jurisdictions. I think people really and truly, I mean, there are so many times where the first things, their first line of attack isn't not necessarily attack, but the first line, their first thinking is to call their member of Congress. And I think members of Congress know that, especially now about cyber and what has gone on, and even our critical infrastructure apparatus in the United States. So they want to have answers for this, but they also want to get their constituents the things they need, and the needs just have evolved over time, even on down to recruitment. Our committee, the House just passed a bill. It was actually a bill championed by the late Sheila Jackson Lee on cyber hiring, training, and getting more people into the cyber workforce. The U.S. Congress has a pretty loud and huge mouthpiece. So they're able to, get things into law and get the attention of the executive branch for the need for more cyber hiring training and to authorize and appropriate for that. So since the field has grown, so has Congress grown along, and Congress's attention to the field has grown along with it over the years.
And it's such a far-reaching issue. And even in your answer, you touched on so many different pieces there. Jordan, I'd love to learn more about how your extensive experience in the military has helped you succeed in the private sector at Teamworks.
Yes, thank you. I think a lot of people might expect the answer for that to be, I've got so much great training and it trained me how to do my job so well in cybersecurity. And while that's not necessarily not the case, I have gotten some very good training efforts, gone to a lot of cyber exercises, trained in incident response. I think what the military does, what a lot of people don't realize and what a lot of veterans forget to do, put on their resumes and such, is really helping hone those soft skills so that you're actually able to compete and do or have better training in some of those harder skills to do. For instance, most folks in the military don't realize they've had a lot of project management experience, whether they, went through the specific agile or waterfall frameworks or not. They've got a lot of experience doing that. Leadership, time management, being able to just inherently apply those skills without really thinking about it, or having to spend too much time in energy and focusing on my timeline versus just doing the work. So I think a lot of what really helped me out and helped me be able to just kind of jump in and start running with a CTI team or the cyber threat intel team that I work with here, was just inherently having some of those soft skills already honed after so many years of experience of working with a very diverse group of people anyway, because the military is probably like the most diverse group of people that I've ever worked with in my life. So that's it's a really short, sweet, simple answer, but honestly, it really is that. And then we do have some really great access to some really great trainings. There are some really fantastic programs that we work with. One of the biggest ones that we do work with in the military is we do have access to some of the SANS programs. So we do end up getting a lot of discounts on some of those highly motivated and recognized certification programs. But really what it comes down to is at the end of the day, it's really nice that you say you have a certificate, but it's being able to put the umph behind to say I've actually practiced the certificate or the things that I've learned from that education. So between soft skills and actually having hands-on keyboard experience, I think those are the two things that really helped drive being able to produce here in the civilian sector.
Thank you, Jordan. That makes a lot of sense. I think soft skills are really key, even in the cyberspace. Sherilyn, so I know that you mentioned before that in your role, you're always collaborating with people in the government and outside the government. What does it look like to collaborate between industry, institutions, and the government to address cybersecurity challenges?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we call ourselves a collaboration hub because we're working actively with, across industry to address cybersecurity challenges. And we've executed many formal mechanisms, right? We've got maybe 400 CRADAs with technology vendors and critical infrastructure owners and operators, and worked with thousands of organizations informally. And there's a lot of reasons for, that collaboration. We want to make sure that we are collectively bringing in technical expertise around cybersecurity, and not just to understand kind of current cybersecurity challenges, but also future cybersecurity challenges, and make sure that we're honing, our crystal ball so that we understand where the cybersecurity landscape, is headed. And some of the issues that, and challenges that we're tackling at NCCOE are really, really difficult research challenges. We have projects on, migration to post-quantum cryptography and 5G cybersecurity, and addressing the cybersecurity and privacy challenges with mobile driver's licenses. Like, these are projects that no one organization is going to solve by themselves. And so we try to provide the opportunity to bring people together so that we can really try to advance the field of cybersecurity and make a difference by pulling all these different organizations together. So it's really critical for us, and for those that are not currently participating with us, feel free to check us out.
Thank you, Sherilyn. And then Jennifer, in your role, you do a lot of collaboration as well at the federal agency level. So what have you noticed, and what do you feel are the most pressing cybersecurity issues facing federal agencies?
So that's a good question. And I did see your poll and I saw the results, and I wasn't surprised that folks voted the way they did. So it's a combination of all of the things that you all had in your poll, and social engineering, the ransomware things. And I love that people are understanding more of what those are and how they're different. Third-party vendors and that supply chain risk management effect on organizations is really affecting us big. And if you think about what happened with CrowdStrike just a couple months ago, that was a third-party vendor, and it had a huge outage across the IT infrastructure, the critical infrastructure across, transportation and healthcare and even the financial industry, and it crippled us for quite some time. Insider threats is huge. We can never negate being cognizant of the users that have the keys to the kingdom. We also have to think about interconnectivity and all the things that we have connected with the various devices in our agencies, and then the emerging technologies. What's a conversation without AI? And Sherilyn mentioned post-quantum cryptography, of course. So we're really looking at what's evolving across the cybersecurity landscape, and we have those threats coming from around the globe. So organizations are having to look at the culture change of making sure that we're educating our users to being cognizant and aware of all of these types of vulnerabilities that are happening. And then what do you do should something happen and you're just the end user? You don't have a role in cybersecurity. But what if you do have a role in cybersecurity and you can do something about it? So really, bridging those gaps of education and making sure that we're looking out for all the trends that are going to help us to just ensure better protections for our environment, whether it's adopting mature zero trust environments or accelerating cloud security vulnerabilities and procedures, or enhancing machine learning and AI capabilities, or looking at adopting cyber insurance in our organizations for those of us that don't work in the federal government, or even the cybersecurity skill gap, as we've talked about a little bit earlier, looking at the resources that we're going to need to assist us with managing the complexities of these vulnerabilities, because it's not going to stop. It's an if. It's not an if, rather it's a when. So we have to be ready, and we have to have the staff and the capabilities to just help us to stay on the cutting edge of what's to come.
Thank you, Jennifer. And one thing I noticed from all your answers to these questions is just how far-reaching and broad cybersecurity can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is.
Mhm.
Our next question is going to be focused on those newcomers to the field. And so, do you all have any advice for someone who's new to the field of cybersecurity? What pathways might they want to take? What steps should they think about? Let's start with Jordan.
We went out of order and I wasn't ready. Okay. No, thank you. I kind of juggled a little bit of with this question and kind of came up with like the 5 steps of what I normally go through with someone. I have a lot of folks, especially on the military side of the house, that do other jobs in the military, but they want to breach into being in cybersecurity and they're struggling on how to do that. So the first couple of things I do is I make sure, are you sure? Do you want to be in cybersecurity? And I'm not asking to persuade them to not be. I'm asking, are you sure you want to do this? Because this is going to take a lot of time, energy, effort, and sometimes financial burden, because it is an expensive field to get into, depending on what you're interested in. Second step, get that mentor. Make sure you have somebody to follow you along in that process, so that they're there to coach you through it, to keep you moving, and also to tell you like, whoa, hang on, we need to slow down or redirect and make sure we're still on the same path that we want to be on. Step 3, plan for your education and growth. So making sure that you have a plan to move forward in your education, but not just stop at, okay, cool, I got a bachelor of, computer science. That does only take you so far nowadays. So you must have a couple of other different things behind your name. So plan for growth as well. Making sure your mentor is also with you during that step of the way, or if at that point, because sometimes we do outgrow our mentors, get another mentor. Keep one at all times. And then my last and fifth and final one is don't give up. Do not give up during this process. It's not going to be worth it at the end if you decided to stop halfway through and have half of the information. It's so much more worth it to follow through and be able to just see that light at the end of the tunnel. Also, I promise you, all your mentors that saw you along the way, they might even be there at your graduations or your certificate ceremonies or anything like that. It's a really great process to see it all the way through to the end. And then, of course, as a part of that not give up process, now you need to become a mentor. So give back and follow back out through that. Those would be my 5 steps that I follow through mentoring somebody into this. And then, of course, I also have mentors myself. So I think it's a really great kind of a step process. There's probably some other things you could do along the way, but that's the 5 guiding lights that I have. So welcome to cybersecurity.
Those are perfect, I think, to keep in mind as you're going along that journey. Hope, do you have any advice for someone who's starting off and getting involved in this field?
I would agree with the points that have been made, but also I would just say make sure not to get intimidated and not to get bogged down, and also just remember that along the lines of what Jordan said, don't give up. Remember that career paths are not linear at all. If you come in thinking that you're going to do one thing in cybersecurity, but get pulled, called, or asked to do something different, or this is a field that is constantly evolving, getting involved in something that may be newer, it may present with opportunity. So I would say stay the course, but also remain open to some type of change in the event that the career path that what you desired going in may not be the career trajectory that you may take.
Definitely, in some ways, it's kind of a balance between the two there. Jennifer, what about you? What's your advice to that newcomer?
So I love what the ladies just shared. I'll add, because Jordan, you had excellent bullet points. I love those. Give yourself grace. Like everyone's on the trajectory of, I have to do this by this date. And you use someone else. I'll use Hope for an example. Hope is doing it by X date and she did it faster than me. So you're not Hope. So you have to make sure that you are in line with your goals and your aspirations. Like you said, Victoria, cyber is not linear. And a lot of times people come and talk with me about wanting to get on my team and do cyber. And I'm like, well, what about cyber interests you? Because I have a lot more of the technical side of the cybersecurity, less of the policy and procedural things. And a lot of people don't even understand what that means. So take some time as you're breaking into the field, understand all the career paths and opportunities there are out there. Because I feel like I'm in a few, social media groups where people are running to get degrees or running to get a bunch of certifications and commas behind their names to hopefully break into the field, maybe not even at the beginning level, at the intermediate and even the higher levels. And you're maybe not ready just yet. Give yourself that grace. Like she said, get some coaches, get some mentors. I believe in having a board of directors of mentors of your career to really shape and advise you. One mentor may not be enough. You may need to think about all of the core competencies that you have to be in this role of your trajectory, especially if you're taking on a new role of bridging from one industry to the next. You may need to have a different set of leaders to just talk through maybe leadership, build business acumen, building change, building these new career goals and skill sets. And different people help to shape different ways of thinking. And also maybe not get all the mentors that look just like you. You have to have a variety of people to help to give you that really good rounded advice. And it really, just stay the pace. It'll really pay off. And what's for you is for you. And when it will be for you, it'll be for you. And I promise you it'll pay off. But you got to have that passion. Oftentimes, I'm sure many of us who do the hiring, it's that passion that exudes. So if you're really finding that path that's for you and that passion starts to come out, then you found the area that you should focus on.
That's a really key piece there, finding that passion and letting that shine through. Sherilyn, what advice do you have for the newcomer to the field of cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's hard to add anything more given all the great advice that's already been shared. But the one thing that I'll say is it's really important, throughout your career to really align, what you want to work on with your values and strengths. And so like and then continue to work to improve upon your strengths, constantly working to learn and benefit and continue to grow. I mean, for me, I'll give you an example, throughout my career, I have always been very good at helping to translate, technical issues for non-technical audiences and understanding, the priorities of stakeholders and how to engage stakeholders. So I consider myself an expert in stakeholder engagement. I don't consider myself an expert in cybersecurity, right? You have to really understand, what are you good at that nobody else is good at, so that you can really add value, to the team and the organization that you're working with. Because, everybody has an understanding in cybersecurity that's in the cybersecurity field. Unless you're one of the top cybersecurity experts in the world, you have to find some other way that you're going to add value to the team. And whenever you look at people that are, really good at what they do, it's likely because they've been doing it for longer and because they've been working at it to improve, their skills to do it for longer. And then once you've identified that within yourself, I totally agree on the importance of having mentors and advisors and having a board. You are not alone. You should not be trying to get a new job by your own. Try to rely on the help of other people to really advance you, in your career.
Thank you, Sherilyn. And I think one key piece that you all mentioned is mentorship. And I think it's probably played a role in all of you all's careers. So I'd love to just hear more about how has mentorship and sponsorship played a role in your career? If you can tell us a story about maybe a mentor who made a difference and what that was like. Can we start with Jordan?
Yes, ma'am. So I think I have a little bit of a story. I didn't actually come into, again, like I didn't come into the career kind of wanting to be a part of cybersecurity, and I was absolutely against it. But experiencing what I experienced, I haphazardly ended up gaining about 13 mentors in the week that I was on. I know that was a lot of that exercise that I got invited to go to. One in particular, he's the other half to my intelligence brain. He works the warfare side of the house. I work for the defense side of the house. And he and we are like this, and he keeps me straight and mentored and guided. And then I offer and do the same thing for him in a different space. But when I walked into the sector, I didn't think that it was going to be anything like that. And I always have a space where I can reach back for that. So for me and my side of the house, if anything, having that role in mentorship and sponsorship immediately into the career field. I walked in and everybody wanted me to do well. Every one of those 13 people wanted me to succeed. And every one of those 13 people on that team relied on me for a certain skill or effort. And so it was a team piece, and they invited me and welcomed me in. I didn't know half their first names. So it was a really, really welcoming experience. And I don't think many people get that. And I think that's something that comes along with us making sure that we are, again, being stewards of our profession. So that's something that we need to continue to do, and I strive to do it as well. So what that taught me to do instead was anytime, anyone, I don't care how broken the English is sometimes, if you message me and ask me what can I do to get into the cybersecurity program, I'm going to do my best to help communicate to you the way that I would help move that forward as a mentor or sponsor to you. I'll give you links. I will help with translations for anything for you. I don't have any problems with doing that, but that's only because I had good ones that welcomed me and they wanted me to be successful when I came in. And I still have some of them. And to kind of play off of one of the things that one of the other ladies said about making sure that your mentors don't always look like you, that's a really big thing. That's another big play off of diversity. Your board of mentors, if you will, should not just be, like in my instance, like white females. They shouldn't be. That's not it at all. I have a very diverse board of mentors myself, and I do love each and every one of them individually for different reasons. And I think that's very important to kind of scope around a couple of these different questions. It all kind of plays into itself when we're talking about this here. So that's my little blip of a story and how that came to be, and what I'd like to offer to everyone else is, if someone comes to you and maybe even you're not the right person for it, help them out, maybe point them in the right direction. I think that's the best way to move that forward. And that's the significance it's played in my career.
Thank you. It's people poured into you, and now you're paying it forward, and that's beautiful. Hope, how has mentorship and sponsorship played a role in your career?
It's played a tremendous role in my career. I would say that my foot got in the door. I never interned on Capitol Hill, did not really know much about even people being employed on Capitol Hill until I got there. And it was because I had a sponsor bring me to at the time the committee's chairman, and he took a chance on me to invest in me, and it wasn't to invest on me for cyber. It was just to invest in me. And then over time, I met people within the legislative branch and outside of the legislative branch. And as it pertains to cybersecurity, things were evolving, mostly within the in the public sector. So my public sector mentors and sponsors were growing as I grew, and they understood that at the time we need, well, even now, we needed each other. And then as you said, the field is broad. And as things were growing and progressing, and we need practitioners, policymakers, people to look at various aspects, emerging aspects. Then we ended up having more, I ended up having even sponsoring, but also mentors and sponsors in some of the newer areas of the field. And we stay in contact, and we give each other nudges on maybe exploring things in a different manner, exploring things in some of the same, in some a different manner, or also what should I be looking at policy wise? What should I be looking at from a legislative front? But I will say that having mentors and sponsors makes a difference, and everyone should have them. Everyone should have them, and it does make a difference to have someone that you can talk to, but also someone that really and truly sees you in the rooms that you're currently in, and then sees a space for you in other rooms, and actually picks up the phone and or even says it while they're in the room, like, you should have invited Jane Doe. And next time, make sure that she's on the list. And then also telling Jane, hey, they're having this luncheon. We have these tech talks. This group hosts this. Maybe you should pay to join this organization. It makes a world of difference, and it also lets you know that you're supported. Um, it's not always good to work on an island, so it lets you know that you're supported and valued.
Definitely, like building that community of people who can help you and further your career along. Jennifer, how has mentorship and sponsorship played a role in your career?
I would echo the same with the ladies that were just shared. I going back to even college, I honestly was leaving undergrad and didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I don't know if I still do, but cyber is where it's at for now, and I love it. But I was thinking about going into Teach for America. I had started to interview for some banks and at positions and such. And I just still wasn't sure, but my mentor and advisor was the one that really sought something out and really convinced me to think about the master's program and look into the scholarship for service. And from there, even staying in contact with him, exploring more about what cybersecurity is and what it could do for me in my career. Even my master's level mentors, started to really shape what I should do and how I should develop some areas. So really carrying through the early phases of my career. And even when I got to this agency that I'm in now, I fell in love, yes, but I knew from internship, I wanted to be an assistant director, a GS-15 equivalent. And I was, just immersed with the ones that I had, met and had come in contact with and started to meet and have good conversations with them. And I was like, I want to do this and I want to be like them. And it wasn't that I didn't think I could be a senior executive, no, but there were not many that looked like me. So for me, it was like, why should this little brown girl from the south side of the ATL get to be that way? But I felt like I could get to at least that GS-15 level. And I didn't need to do it when I was, a little older in my career. So I had a clear path. So I did do some things and I was aggressive with it. And I really was having fun doing it and performed strongly where my resume developed itself independently of just what I looked like and who I was externally. And my mentors continued to coach me. And when I got to that GS-15 very early on, they were like, okay, what's next? And I was like, I just got here. So they wanted to talk about what was next. And the next for me was the senior executive service. And I had not thought about it. Again, not because I didn't think I belonged there, but because more of them were not of like me. So really receiving that coaching and that feedback and that push to start thinking bigger and better, even for myself, having put myself in that box was really powerful. And even now, I have mentors and coaches who call me all the time, and tell me, hey, your name is in rooms that you're not even in. And that feels so surreal for me. I'm still like this person that's like, I got here. Wow. And I've been in the role now for a little over 4 years. but I honestly enjoy being able to sit in the seat and give back, being the voice at the table and speaking up for those. I was in a scenario just yesterday where all the men were talking and I pinged someone that's like, said, lady, don't you want to speak up? And they didn't think they could have the voice. So I love being able to push and coach and advise others, to even men or women, both, but really, just be that voice to just strengthen others to push forward the way they feel encouraged.
That's beautiful. Sometimes you need that push to take
Absolutely.
it to the next level. Sherilyn, what about you and your career and path? How has mentorship and sponsorship played a role?
Yeah, it's so critical, and I think especially working in DC, I think networking and relationships and such comes a little bit more naturally. Um, I've always been someone who didn't take very naturally though to networking and understanding how all that works, and it took me a long time to realize that I didn't need to be the one who knew everyone. I just needed to know a couple of people who knew everyone. Right. And so really relying on advisors and mentors to make connections for me, and every interview I've gotten, every job I've gotten, is because there were people who advocated for me on my behalf before I applied, before I went to the interview. And so finding people who are going to be in your corner, as Jennifer said, talking about you in rooms that you're not in, is so critical. And just a couple of tips I've learned in dealing with mentors and advisors over the years. One, when you're working with a mentor, be very clear about how they can help you. I think most people in the field really want to be helpful, but they often don't know how to. And so like when I was looking for a career in cybersecurity, I was initially talking to people and being like, hey, I really need your help, finding a new job. And people were like, oh, this is great. Well, glad to help you. And then I was getting very frustrated that, folks weren't helping. And it took me a while to realize, the conversations that I should have been having with mentors are things like, hey, help me narrow down my, field that I should be in. Where should I be focused on that aligns with my expertise? And once you kind of narrow that down, you're able to pinpoint, okay, I really want to do cybersecurity policy at Google. Okay, well, I know somebody who knows somebody at Google. I know somebody in the policy field. I can make those connections for you. And I think the other thing is not all mentors have to be super senior, super experts in a field. I have a lot of peer mentors who have just been amazing advocates for me, and really deep relationships that I've cherished over the years. So definitely look to folks within your organization, maybe even folks in different fields than you, to make connections with folks.
Most definitely. I think some of it's about asking the right questions and getting narrow about what you want. We're going to transition to audience questions. And as we're doing that, I also want to put up our last and final poll about which emerging technology do you think will have the greatest impact on cybersecurity in the next 5 years? And so our first question from the audience is coming from Ivy, and it says, for those looking to advance their careers in cybersecurity, which area offers the most growth potential? And anyone can chime in here and answer this question.
I mean, they all do. It's hard to just pinpoint. You really have to understand more of what it is you're looking to go into. Do you want to go into risk and compliance or policy procedures and oversight? Do you want to go the more technical route and be more on the security operations, network controls, and the continuous monitoring side of things? The digital forensics and the incident response and the knowing how to help us with the advanced persistent threats, and the threat intelligence is really critical right now. The ethical hacking and helping us to really just be good stewards of understanding, the bad actors have all the tools and technologies that we have as well. So really helping us to just be better stewards of securing our enterprises. So really just going out there, there's so many different roadmaps. I used to just go off the one on SANS because, you know, I'm government and it's really detailed, but find you a good roadmap that shows you the very different cyber related career paths. And even within those different areas, it'll show you some different training opportunities and development areas where you can upskill in the various areas. And even with the poll that we just had, thinking about the next 5 years, AI is a prime example. Even with AI technologies emerging, we're going to have to still think about the cybersecurity risk and the privacy related vulnerabilities that the implications of those technologies are going to have. So we're still going to be needed in this space to secure those technologies. So, you know, think about those different paths and what that looks like for you. And again, the sky is the limit, but it really resides into you and what you would have the best passion and experience with pushing forward to do, because not either of them are easy, but some are probably easier than others.
Definitely. And I think the AI conversation, it's also reflective in the poll as that was the number one answer of what's going to have the greatest impact in the next 5 years. So as technology develops, so does cybersecurity, like that piece as well. They kind of have to develop in parallel. And then our next audience question is, as a woman, as a woman of color, from whichever standpoint you share, what would you do in this world if you had no fear? And again, anyone can chime in with that answer.
I'll chime in because I share the standpoint of both. I would say this, and I think that one thing that we need to do is kind of challenge ourselves. I'm also a woman of faith, and one thing, fear is not a God-given gift, but it does happen to us from time to time, and I recognize that, and it's taken me a lot of work, a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring, and speaking with mentors and sponsors to get here, and that is to try to shed that, to try to shed, and like I said, fear comes and goes. Nervousness comes and goes. For some people, imposter syndrome comes and lingers and goes. But how about let's not lead with that. Let's not have that innate where I'm a little nervous because I'm the only woman in the room. I'm a little nervous because a lot of people, a lot of other people get nervous when they see things they haven't seen before. So if they haven't seen a Black person in the room, or an Indian woman in the room, or an Asian woman in the room, or a Hispanic woman in the room, that may make them nervous. But if you walk into a room with your best foot forward, knowing that you have the knowledge, the skills, the capabilities. Also, sometimes you're put in those rooms by your sponsors. So you have people that have looked out for you and know that you should be there, and people to depend on, and also and come into the room with the right perspective. I think you can go just about anywhere and apply, if you're looking to take your job to another level, and apply to various positions. But I think one thing you have to do is take that self work and know that that you're here for a reason. Here to make an impact. We're on this call because of cybersecurity, so make an impact in this field. But I do think that we going into it, we need to shed the, well, why did they pick me? Why am I here? Are they just looking for women at the time, or are they just looking for a person of color? No, you're here because you know your facts. You're here because you represent your agency or your company well, or you're here because your sponsor thought that you should be here and know that you are skillful and capable enough to handle it. So, like I said, I know that sometimes we get a little nervous. We may even scroll a little bit too much and read too much into statistics, but having innate fear and innate imposter syndrome, or going around saying, well, I have imposter syndrome, so I don't even know. That is something that, but it takes a lot of work if that is you. that we should work to shed. And I think groups like this, Leadership Connect, Women in Cybersecurity, Women in Homeland Security, getting around like-minded people in your field, mentors and sponsors and affiliate groups at your job, those things can actually bring you some of the resources so that does not happen.
Thank you, Hope. That was very inspiring. And for our final question, I want to do a bit of a round robin of what do you predict will be the future of cybersecurity and what excites you about it? So we'll start with Sherilyn.
I mean, I had a different answer that I had prepared, but I mean, I think this panel is the future of cybersecurity. I mean, that was so inspirational. I very much enjoyed um, this this event, and for the folks that are online, I mean, you guys are the future of cybersecurity, and I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, all of the change that we are able to make to really realize some really big differences in cybersecurity.
Thank you. Jennifer, what about you? What do you see as the future?
I agree. I just enjoy all of the people having this energy to come into the field. I speak a lot, of course, but you know, we always talk about the workforce challenges. In my vision, I think we're going to limit those and really increase those that are interested in this area, and you know, really showcasing all the different career paths there are, and everywhere that you can really be in this capacity to help us to fill that gap. And it's going to be so special, especially for us filling it with more and more women. It's going to be exciting to see. So I'm enjoying the ride, so we shall see.
Most definitely. Hope, what do you see as the future in cybersecurity?
I love what the ladies before me have said, but I think the workforce is the future. Still think that even with the emergence of machines and AI, that there's going to be rooms for humans. And also, I think that some of the future will depend on people with various perspectives, with the diversity within the field, people that look at cyber equity, people that look at cyber in rural communities, people that look at cyber from a very different perspective. So I think that the way that cyber hiring is changing to make sure that we're inclusive of people, especially when we look at hiring people within the United States, to make sure that we have a robust hiring apparatus of people from historically Black colleges, minority serving institutions, and rural areas and areas outside of major cities. Really and truly, it's going to help the field grow, and I'm excited to see it.
Most definitely. I think something that you all have said is it's the people. And Jordan, what do you see as the future of cybersecurity?
Well, obviously, to echo the same thing as the ladies have said, it's the people that we're going to mentor behind us, and we're going to make well for the folks that are coming behind us. But another thing, I kind of want to key in on something that the last listener actually asked in their question was something about fear. I think a lot of the future of cybersecurity is going to be the removal of fear. Everyone's so scared that their job is about to be taken over by something that can't even tell me how many the correct letters are in a certain word yet. So, like, stop thinking that artificial intelligence and ChatGPT are taking your jobs. I think the removal of that fear and the welcoming into the society and into the different communities that it's going to help produce spaces and open up some different workloads. I think that's going to be some of the development of cybersecurity and moving forward into the future. I don't think that we're going to look like Terminator anytime soon, but I do think that we definitely have to have some removal of that fear to be able to move forward in this and develop the workforce in the community moving forward. So that's what I see, and I'm very excited about it.
Definitely. I think we're all excited and you can see that it's going to be very bright. Well, thank you again to all of our panelists for joining us and offering all of the insight and expertise. And then thank you to our audience for asking such great questions and participating and for joining us today. We'll have some other panel opportunities upcoming, and you all can also keep an eye out for the takeaways from this panel. But thank you all and have a great rest of your day.